I remember when I started as a student of politics generally, and I sort of moved into the local government thing and got more and more specialized in local government, and I think now I probably could be the only, one of the very few political scientists in Canadian universities who exclusively commits his attention to local government. When I started out, I assumed, because so much of the literature pointed me in this direction, that better municipal government is bigger municipal government, that where our cities are expanding and that we need to have one municipal government for one city, and that there are economies of scale, and that everybody can do the job more professionally and effectively as things get bigger. I have changed my position on that, and part of it's simply because if our municipal governments are so big, we cannot have the involvement of ordinary citizens of the kind that I talked about before. And in the context both of Waterloo and of this area, although it's a bit hard to believe looking out on this landscape, in both those contexts, it's hard to decide what it is that is the sort of city that's relevant here. And the provincial government says, and I actually agree with this, that if we're thinking about Toronto as the great driving city region of certainly Ontario, but arguably all of Canada, and it is the largest one. I mean, they have defined, as you know here, that the Greater Golden Horseshoe, which they are taking very strong control of in terms of planning, includes both the Waterloo region and Durham region. So if we were even working with the model of let's have one municipal government for one urban region, that's what we would be really talking about, is one municipal government that stretches from Waterloo to Durham and from Niagara to Barrie. Now that is simply ludicrous. But I support the idea that the provincial government is looking at the whole system so that, you know, we have transit mechanisms so that we protect the natural areas, moraine, the escarpment, and that kind of thing. If we take that approach, then in my mind, it's the regional levels of government in this area, and in the Greater Golden Horseshoe, that are kind of the irrelevant ones. And that if the provincial government is doing its job, we have the luxury of having municipal governments that match the local communities that people want. And I would think even in this area that some of the municipal governments that you've got here, the so-called lower tier ones, might even be too large. But, you know, that's not for me to think about, although I do think about it looking out over this landscape. So that's one point I want to make about the relevance of regional governments in this context. But I can certainly see the point, or understand the point, that there might be some kind of need for a mechanism of municipal government that is larger than individual municipalities and smaller than provinces and probably smaller than the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The argument, or the issue then becomes, what kind of an organization are we looking at, should we be looking at here? And here I think Canadians have to step back from what we're used to and just to realize how unusual our political system is. Already, leaving aside the regional governments, we have distinct political systems at the federal level, the provincial level, and the local level. I don't know if you ever tried to explain to people from other countries that you can be a liberal provincially and a conservative federally, or that the party systems aren't integrated. And then when you explain on top of that, oh, and by the way, at the local level, we just have ordinary citizens who run. Sometimes they have a little backing from, informal backing from political parties, but they're party names aren't on the ballots. It's all individual. So basically, the person from outside says, well, you Canadians are expected to keep 3 different political systems straight in your mind so that you know who is doing what at each level. Because in most countries of the world, if you support the Liberal Party or the Socialists or the Conservatives, you support that group nationally, regionally, and locally because they run candidates everywhere. So the reason I mention this is because the people who are arguing for a distinct level of regional government that has its own mechanisms for electoral accountability, they're saying to Canadians, and in this case the people of Durham region, 3 levels of government isn't enough to keep track of. We want you to keep track of 4 distinct levels of government. And although I don't have any problem with numbers of politicians, I do have a bit of difficulty imagining that ordinary people, the ones who aren't here tonight, can actually keep track of what's going on at these 4 distinct levels. So what is the purpose of a regional level of government like the Durham region? In my mind, its, carefully, its sole purpose is to serve as a mechanism that enables the core municipalities, lower tier municipalities, to cooperate with each other, to work out arrangements with each other. And that is the model that run in British Columbia of what's called regional districts, where municipalities can opt in and out of different services, where they don't even suggest that it's a distinct level of government, it's just a mechanism for enabling municipalities to cooperate with each other. So it's true what Jim was saying earlier on, or no, I guess it was our chair, was saying that I actually think we spend too much time talking about government structures in this line of work. And it's kind of a paradoxical thing to say because, in a way, I make my living out of this. If nobody was interested in government structures at the local level, nobody would come to my classes, there wouldn't be any purpose for people reading the stuff that I do. But we do have this tendency to think that if we could only get the structures right, then a lot of the problems would look after themselves. I don't think that there's been any big structural change in Ontario in the last 40 years or so. It goes back to the founding of regional governments, where we can say a structure actually solved a problem. There's been a lot of good developments, good things happen, like protecting natural environment and the moraine and this kind of thing, and some bad things that have happened. But I tend to think that those good things and bad things are not the result of good structures or bad structures. They're the result of the kinds of decisions and pressures that have come on individual people who've been in